This is music, and this is Eviction's album, The World is Hours Away. So The World is Hours Away by Eviction was originally released in 1990 on Metal Blade. The version I have is a reissue from 2019, which was out on Heaven and Hell Records. Now, I honestly don't remember exactly where I picked this one up. I do remember that I picked it up because I liked the artwork and the logo looked very thrashy, so I figured, this has got to be good, right? Or at least fun. So that's why I picked it up. I was intrigued by the cover. I did do some research and looked it up. It was thrash metal and so on and so forth. So I didn't go into this completely blind. But the cover art I like it, I love it, it's awesome. It's almost like a comic book-y parody, like on Ed Repka's artwork, because it has kind of like the same feel and the same gruesomeness to it as a lot of Ed Repka's work does have, but it's just more like a comic style. And I really love it. It's really great. I say that's what caught my attention. So that's what the front looks like, and the back. I actually like this layout too. I don't know if that's what it looked like, on the original version, but I like this. The picture kind of in the middle, the logo, the song titles, the track list down below. It just looks nice. I think it looks very neat, and of course, they have this very, very heavy metal look, leather jackets and long hair and patches and all that stuff. So the visuals, great, right? This is great to have on vinyl. The 12-inch format. It wouldn't look as great on a CD version, but that's the cover artwork. Awesome, I love it. It comes with the version I have with this insert here with your obligatory thrash metal collage. And then here you have the lyric sheet. And it also comes with this poster, I guess, very small poster. Eviction, Pittsburgh metalcore. So Eviction is an American band, if I didn't mention that. And you have a Mickey Mouse looking skeleton here, so I'm surprised that Disney didn't sue Eviction over this. I think this is great, I love it. And that it says metalcore also gives you an idea of the music that we're probably dealing with. Crossover, because back in the late 80s and the early 90s, metalcore was not the genre that it is now. Metalcore was used interchangeably with crossover, so it just meant metal and hardcore mixed. The album itself just came in this paper inner sleeve that I don't like using myself, so I always transfer the record to a polylined inner sleeve, and it's old school black vinyl here with I think a pretty cool center label. So nothing special apart from the center label. So that's sort of the physical package here. Now we're dealing with, as I said, not metalcore but crossover thrash. And it starts out with a song called Our World, which is mid-tempo thrash metal song. There's some crossover elements to it, some of the riffage and also some gang vocals, I think. And there's a really cool breakdown actually in the bridge, and not metalcore breakdown, but thrash crossover breakdown. And it's followed by a song called "Listen," and that one is interesting because having heard Our World, I was expecting it to be okay. This is going to be thrash metal. Crossover all the way through, but "Listen" is a punk song. It has more of a punk vibe to it. It even has a solo with notes that are kind of like off key, and I think it's on purpose. You gotta get used to listening to it, but I think it's on purpose, and it's a pretty good song actually. A fun punk song. "Listen," and it's followed by a song called "Drunken State." It starts out being kind of heavy, kind of groovy, actually pretty good. There's some up-tempo, thrashy sections to it as well. So some nice dynamics there. And there's some really awesome riffage in it, I think, to be honest. So that's a great song too, "Drunken State." It's followed off by "Marching Off to War." That's another mid-tempo affair. In the chorus, there's some hardcore vibes, and it almost reminds me a bit of Propane. The hardcore / metal band Propane. I get a Propane vibe from this. They're nowhere nearly as heavy as Propane, but I just get sort of the same vibe. I don't know if it's because the vocals sound similar. But "Marching Off to War," great song. And there's a very heavy and doomy breakdown in it as well, which is also cool. It's followed by "Living in Emptiness," which is also the last song on side A, and that's another mid-tempo thrasher. It has this riff that kind of is kind of chugging along. And there's a pretty cool mini solo in it, right? But another mid-tempo thrasher, so you sort of get the pattern here, right? There's a pattern, mid-tempo with some bursts of up-tempo stuff and sometimes some heavier stuff. But that's side A. 5 kind of solid songs, and side B starts out with a song called "You Decide," which is another mid-tempo song. It has thrash elements, but also, interestingly to me, some traditional heavy metal elements, which I find interesting on a crossover album. And there's a really, really cool bridge, and they also play around with some odd time signatures here. So that's a pretty cool song as well. "You Decide," more traditional metal almost. It's followed by "Struggle with Society," another mid-tempo thrasher, but it has more of an unconventional drum beat going on, which I think is interesting. And there's some punky sections as well to it. So another song that kind of dips into not just hardcore, but more like punk rock as such. And that's followed by "Behind the Mask," which is not a cover version of the Acid Rain one. If it is, then it could be, but no, it's not. It's not a cover version of that. It just has the same title. Another mid-tempo affair. Another chuggy song. It chugs along with the chugging riffage. You got a couple of odd time signatures there as well, which I appreciate. The chorus is groovy, and it's I don't know if I think the song, however, is kind of cool or whether it's unintentionally funny or both. So there's some cool stuff going on, but there are also kind of some things that might be unintentionally funny. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I like it. I'm going to go with it's a cool song. It's followed by a very interesting song as well. So we had "Listen" on side A, which was more like an all-out punk rocker. We had You Decide, which had some traditional metal elements in it, and then we have Open Your Eyes, which opens up as a blues song with some southern rock elements, right? Um, and eventually it does start to take on a more punky feel, but it's really out of left field that it's like a bluesy opening, southern rock opening. Um, and if we've learned anything from Violent Playground and from Nuclear Assault, it is that you can mix blues and thrash, and it can be kind of fun. Open Your Eyes is an anti-racist song as well. And the lyrics, for the most part, are kind of like, social criticism of capitalism and things like that. I think there's also like a song that deals with alcoholism, as far as I remember, right? The last song is called American Way. So not The American Way like the Sacred Reich song, it's American Way. It opens out also interesting with an acoustic intro that has like a folk, I think, kind of like a folky feel to it. And then eventually does turn into a heavy metal thrash crossover song. So you have 10 songs on this album. They are, for the most part, mid-tempo crossover thrasher songs with some up-tempo parts every now and then, and you got some injections from other genres like just punk rock, traditional metal, even blues and southern rock, and even some folk. But overall it is a crossover thrash album. I've seen some reviews of it that kind of criticize it for being unremarkable, and having unremarkable and riffs that are not memorable and songs that are not memorable. I think it's a bit harsh to say that it's an unremarkable album. Granted, it is a second, maybe third tier thrash metal album that sort of came in the wake of the greats, the popular albums that sold a lot, and labels started signing second and third tier thrash metal bands. This is one such second tier. And we're not dealing with, super trailblazing music, although the genre mixtures or whatever are interesting. But I think it's a good album. I think it's unfair to call it unremarkable. It's not a masterpiece. It's not great. There's some great elements to it, but it's good. It's enjoyable, and it's an album I like listening to from time to time. Right? It's a remastered version, so I don't know what the original sounded like. The production is fine. It's one thing that's interesting is that the guitars are not particularly distorted. I mean, they are distorted, but it sounds more like they were just distorted through an amp, and that's it. So they don't sound super heavy, but the riffage itself makes it sound heavy. The guitars have a pretty sharp sound though, but not particularly heavy. You know what I mean? In terms of the distortion. The bass is audible, and we always have to comment on that when we're dealing with thrash metal from the late 80s and the early 90s, thanks to Injustice for All. The drums are a bit low in the mix, and I think had it been remixed rather than remastered, I think they would have turned up the drums a bit. It's a bit of a shame, but what can you do? I think the album offers, despite people saying that the riffage is not memorable, I think it does offer you some pretty cool riffage, and also some pretty nice solos. Right? I mean, it is, as I said, I think it's a good album. I think it has a lot of qualities. People might find it a bit boring because most of the songs are mid-tempo, but I don't. The vocals are more like on the shouty side, so they're more like shouts and yells, not so much singing. As I said, they hint a bit at Propane. To me, the vocals sound like somewhere in between Propane and DRI. So it's slightly more gruff DRI, or maybe a less heavy and macho Propane. I like Propane, by the way. I think it's a great band. Mostly mid-tempo songs. So this is, as I said, a good album. I don't think it's not a memorable album. I don't think it's insignificant. It is a second tier band. I think it's a fun album. It's a good listen, some good riffage, mostly mid-tempo songs. Is it essential in a thrash metal collection? I don't necessarily think so, but I'm happy to have it in my collection. And as I said, positive evaluation from me. I like the small punk elements, the small bluesy elements, and so on and so forth. I think it's a nice crossover thrash album. I think if you like crossover thrash and you want to give it a spin, give it a chance, I think you should. Maybe if you can find it in CD, in the CD format, or an electronic version to check out. It doesn't have to be on vinyl. Personally, I appreciate having it on vinyl because I love the artwork, to be honest. But yeah, so Eviction, The World Is Ours Away, a good, solid, mostly mid-tempo crossover thrash album. Gets a thumbs up from me. Anyways, thanks for watching.